10 years ago, The Legend of Korra ended, and soon we will get a new series and movies about the ongoing world that is Avatar. Seeing the natural progression of time within the world of the Avatar, I feel like the next show may contain notions that the four nations are no longer. As technology advances, we will see splits among the four nations into many more, and the new Avatar will be right in the middle of the main split, what used to be the Earth Kingdom. Looking back at The Legend of Korra, I find myself wondering what the next show may contain. Hello and welcome to Television Tuesday, the show where we talk TV on Tuesday and tell you all about it. I'm your host, Garrett, and today we talk about the world of Avatar. Now, the main thing I want to get into is what I think the next plot of the next show might be. Seeing what came from the original show of Avatar: The Last Airbender and all of the small details that built up and became the main plots of Korra are just all right in front of you. And I want to take some of those small plots from Korra and really see if I can pick apart and determine what this next show may be about. The first thing I'll touch on is probably the most obvious, with evil dictators like the Dai Li and the Fire Lord becoming people like the Earth Queen or Kuvira. On top of this, you also see people who now think that the government shouldn't be in charge of people, and we should get back to a more free-flowing world and more spiritual world, like with the Red Lotus. On top of this, we have Korra losing the Avatar state, which could be a big factor in the next show. A lot of people seem to think that she might be starting a new cycle, and this next Avatar will only be able to connect with Korra. Another one of those things, like I just previously mentioned, was the subcultures of bending. People with combustion bending, or people like Hama or Amon with blood bending. And seeing that progression of this isn't just some special iteration of a character. This is a whole form and a whole way that people can take. Now, one of the main things that has happened at the end of The Legend of Korra is that the Earth King at the time steps down and decides that he believes that there should be separate nations within what used to be the Earth Kingdom and that they should be self-governing. I think this, on top of some of the other little themes like the Metal Clan or how various forms of bending like lightning bending has become more mainstream and people are using it for even jobs, could really grow and advance in the next 100 years after Korra, or for however long she ended up living, which was hopefully a long time. Love Korra. What I think could potentially happen is, much like the Metal Clan in The Legend of Korra, I do feel like we might start seeing these independent states draw farther away from the four nations and see more of a firebending nation. But the bending of these people over here are more lightning bending, and they don't really have as much a connection to fire. And taking these sub-bendings and really making them their own. The two other big points I'll make is, I think we will definitely see something along the lines of the airbending split. We see that with Tenzin and Korra, they brought about the old airbending and tried to revive this nation and this culture. But not everybody that got airbending after season 2 of The Legend of Korra wanted to be a part of that air nation. And I think it would be really cool to see some of these new states within the Earth Kingdom be these new airbender states. People that aren't these nomadic travelers going around the world and helping other cultures, but their own thing and whatever they want it to be. The other point, I think, is almost kind of like how Republic City was initially built. In the comics that we see between The Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender, we learn that the Republic City kind of started out with firebenders and earthbenders living in the same places after the 100-Year War, and them not really wanting to leave their own homes because they've built up these mixed families. It seems to be almost genetic how bending comes. Like with Bolin, he couldn't really metal bend, but he was one of the few who could lava bend. And I think seeing a subculture in the Fire Nation of these earthbenders and firebenders that are coming together and living together, but primarily they deal with lava, and they've become this kind of new form of bending. In Wan's backstory in The Legend of Korra, we see that not only Rava can interact with humans, but other spirits can as well. You see this in form of the jackal-like spirit who enters the firebender and changes him, or the guy who was like a tree or something, whatever he was. Not only do I think that these can make some really cool villains and plot lines for the show, I also think it kind of reinforces my last point of, maybe some of these can blend people together, and some people can use one or two forms of bending, which again could potentially even make the Avatar more obsolete. One of the other big things you can kind of tell from Korra to Avatar: The Last Airbender is, in Korra, the time jump led us into more of an industrial revolution, set somewhere maybe around the 1920s to 40s kind of era, and while I don't want to see iPad kids with bending, I do think it'd be cool to set this in very much a more big city New York, like 1990s kind of setting for this new Avatar. And this will bring me into my final point of the Avatar dealing with maybe some values of tradition versus the modern times of seeing some of these cultures that are very much, oh, well, like this is an earth-bending nation, or we still should be under the Earth Kingdom and the lineage, and people being like, oh, well, we're just sand benders, or we're just metal benders, or seeing, you know, any type of airbender decide their path in the world. I think you could have an Avatar that really gets into what people really want out of the world and the many different worldviews that people can have, from people like Zahir to people like Aang. I think there are a lot of possibilities to be had with this expansive world that we got after The Legend of Korra. Overall, I believe everything I talked about in this video has a very good chance of coming up and being a major player in the next show. I very much look forward to be watching it, and all of the other Avatar content that I know is going to be coming out with over the next couple years. I know they've announced some movies. I believe the Grown Up Gang movie is coming up sometime next year, so I'm very much looking forward to it. I'd love to know other people's thoughts on this. What do you think that could be shown or presented, or what kind of ideals do you think that this new version of the world is going to be? But anyway, I hope you liked this video. Once again, this is Television Tuesday. Here at Studio 24, we love to make and talk about film. We have plenty of new short films up on the channel right now, with our newest being Nexus. We also, in October, straight through Halloween, have plenty of good horror films coming out. You should please come back and check us out then. Until then, we do have more episodes of this show, along with our sister show, Studio Cinema Saturday. We have episodes like The Boys, Deadpool vs. Wolverine, Gotham, and plenty of really good other stuff. So please, come back, check us out. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.